And a good Friday afternoon to you. This weather video is driven by 802cars.com, representing 802 Toyota, Twin City Subaru, and 802 Honda. They're all located off of Exit 7 on Interstate 89. Well, what you can see here is the antecedent conditions of Vermont, where there's not a lot of leaf out, according to the latest indications here, across the higher terrain, the mountainous areas of Vermont. However, you get in some of the valleys, you can see an increasing amounts of green, some of the river valleys and so forth. Up in the Northeast Kingdom, same thing, the highlands here. A little bit of snow and still along some parts of the spine of the Green Mountains here and there, but not a whole lot. What does show up is Mount Washington, New Hampshire, a little higher presidential range in these particular peaks here. Currently seeing a cold weather pattern with an upper level trough up here in Canada, central Canada, and this has brought a plume of moisture that's been working through along this ridge of higher pressure. That ridge proceeding as it moved in brought the great weather we had during the day yesterday on Thursday, and now it's been replaced by this plume of moisture, but high pressure that's building in over here, a lot of clearing skies. This is what's going to be working in from the Great Lakes and building in and ridging across our region during this coming weekend and including Mother's Day. This will keep a weather system pretty much at bay, holding it right about this area along the leading edge of some precipitation that will make a run at us, but mostly will hold off until sometime along about Monday. Looking at the current temperatures across the region, you can also see that there's some reports of snow across the high ground of the southern Rockies and New Mexico and so forth. And it just goes to show that there's still some pretty good colder air kind of working its way through North America. And we'll have an upper level system that will then develop and bore down some colder air for us. That's going to be crossing through the region Monday night into Tuesday, lasting probably into Wednesday before pulling away. And we finally get some better conditions on the other side of Wednesday, especially Thursday, and maybe on Friday we could see temperatures climb up to closer to 60 degrees. But that's a long ways off. If anything, we're looking at a little bit of wet snow, unfortunately, for Monday night into Tuesday. Stay tuned. Looking at the 6-hourly increments of the European model, we can see that most of the more steadier rains begins to pull away. We have one little flash of thunderstorm activity that's going to be right along the tail end of this system, generally right about here, and we may see a few lightning strikes in the far northern areas. Maybe a little better chance across the southern parts of Vermont, both Bennington and Windham counties. But the way it sets up right now is that's going to pull away and give us a dry weekend. You can see an area of higher pressure, but it's rather cold. As you see, temperatures aloft will be at 850 hectopascals. Roughly the top of Mount Mansfield, temperatures actually below the 0 degrees centigrade mark. So that be meaning below 32 degrees Fahrenheit. Cold enough to snow. And it does look like we'll see dry weather just in time for that, and that's typically how these things work. Now note, far southern Vermont, this is 12Z Sunday, about 8 o'clock in the morning. You might see a little bit of rainfall. This makes a gradual run up, and then it kind of backs off right here. So probably in the morning hours, a little more susceptible right along the Massachusetts-Vermont border, and then that system begins to pull away until this system works on in. This is our upper level low, and this is what's going to be producing some wet snowfall across our neck of the woods here. A little healthier batch of moisture is working in. It's not a huge deal, but it presents a problem anytime we have leaf out. And of course, out of season snowfalls can be dramatic in terms of wet snow loading, so something we're going to have to keep a close eye on. Here again, this is on Monday night. This is valid about 2 o'clock in the morning on Tuesday. And then by the time we get into 8 o'clock in the morning Tuesday, you can see that area of slightly more elevated precipitation into this particular region here. And what ends up happening is it, of course, slides on out, but kind of lingers as a cutoff low. Doesn't really go anywhere very fast. And so consequently, this is going to linger into Wednesday. Finally, thereafter, it looks like good project weather will develop for Thursday. And again, with a warming trend into Friday. The next weather system will be a cold front. You can see another cold shot of air working on in. This will happen, it looks like, that's about valid about 8 o'clock on Saturday this coming weekend. So Saturday is not looking too good either. Maybe even a little bit of wet snow in some of the higher terrain. This is the GFS ensemble centered on Montpelier, Vermont. So we're coming out of some precipitation. This will dry up around 0Z. That's about 8 o'clock this evening. Again, centered on Montpelier. And just a little minor uptick of precip here. I don't think it's going to materialize to anything, but it does look like we'll see a dry day on Saturday. It looks like a dry day on Sunday. And then our next shot of precipitation works in on Monday in the morning hours. And this is where it gets a little bit dicey. Looking at precipitation type, where we might actually see a little bit of snow. Nope, the GFS ensemble says, no, we're not picking up on that yet. Boy, the Europeans, several model runs have been kind of indicating that. So really no snow to worry about, according to the GFS ensemble. I have a feeling it's going to show up, however. Looking at the 850 temperature hectopascal, you can see that these temperatures do go above the freezing mark, this being 0 degrees centigrade, but they go down below freezing once we dry out over the weekend, and then you can see how close things are here. So a fairly close shave. Looking at precipitable water, PWatts, you can see that this is greater than 1.2 inches, so a very moist atmosphere, but that's going to be drying out dramatically once we get into this weekend, and that's why we're going to see some areas of sunshine, but a lot of low clouds are going to linger. So it's kind of a 50-50, maybe even a 60-40 proposition with more clouds over the weekend than what we're going to see in terms of sunshine. Rainy scenario, here's the Weather Prediction Center 7-day total QPF. Accumulated precipitation amounts in blue here is about 1 inch and ½ inch here and so forth. We're looking at greater than 2-inch amounts in the Adirondacks. Weighted temperature, maximums for the next 5 days. You can see we're colder than normal, running close to about 9 degrees on average. 3 days later, it even gets more, and that's when that shot of colder air works in, and that's weighted, again, accordingly, about 12 degrees below normal for this time of year is ridiculous. Colder than normal weather, and you can see that much of the country is seeing that anomalous temperature below normal. Let's take a look at the rest of the world. You can see that high latitude blocking has a tendency to bring the temperatures up. You can see well above normal here over parts of northern Scandinavia and so forth. The Pacific Northwest into Alaska. That's displaced a lot of cold air, and that's where it's dropped in. So this is anomalous cold. A little tiny bit of warmth here, but that's going to be pushing in the early part of next week. Looking at the rest of the planet, look at that. This is one of the areas keyed for very warm weather in parts of Eurasia. West coast of British Columbia, Pacific Northwest into Alaska is warmer than normal. Southern Hemisphere, and you can see this is our big deal, and that's what's going to be sitting just about right over us early next week. That's it from here. Roger Hill, Wuthering Heights. Thanks for watching.